recent crash to $53,000 was the largest crash of the entire cycle. So what are the next threats for cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin moving forward? Are we about to see further downside, or could this be a V-shaped recovery? In this video, we'll look at the analysis for both scenarios, a V-shaped recovery or a further crash. The point that I made in the last video is I thought it was pretty important that this area had some sort of clean out in terms of a price range there. So as I'm saying, I don't know if this is the exact low. There are signs that it is around the low or could be the low. But as long as the market tests this price range, because this is essentially the extreme emotion and the euphoria. And from what I've seen with my analysis over my experience, is that you typically want to see a lot of this, if not all of it, this euphoria get wiped out of the market before it can continue on. It seems like a logical thing that you want to see the weak hands, those who are just buying up because they're greedy at the peak, get wiped out so that you can form another solid base. And right now, as I've said, I think we're on that path at the moment. Now, on top of that, we start to look at some of the more technical structures here with the price. You can see we've got this top to this low projected from the tops that came in May and June. And so the reason for that is you want to measure out the moves to the downside. Are they roughly equal or are they extending? If they're extending, that means you're starting to get a little bit more selling going on. That is going to push the market further, or could push the market further. Whereas what we've seen, you can see this number right across the bottom here at around 54,800, that we got an almost exact repeat of that entire range. So that is a good thing. That's a healthy balance here, a nice healthy correction. So what we want to see from this point, and that leads us into the next point about the 3-day rule, right? Is that from here, doesn't have to happen, but a 3-day up would be a really nice sign to show that this is most likely, not guaranteed, but most likely the low. Check out May 1st. You had this day, 1, 2, 3 green days, and 3 higher highs, higher lows, that is, more importantly, not just green or red, but higher highs, higher lows, and that held that low up for a very long time. So this happened to be a very, very important low, and right now we've got to close above that low, which is also important. Now we want to see multiple days that close above it, and you want to hopefully see the 3 days up, and then we can start to look at some other price ranges up here, which I'll get to in a moment. But so far, that signal worked well at the low. It does not mean anything if it's within a move. Let's keep going with the bullish scenario here, and we got the resistance levels overhead. So the shorter term stuff here, 1 day, 58.7, that's basically the 50% level through this just 1 day range, which also lines up nicely with the low on June 24th. So that's an important price point now for BTC to get some closes above in the short term. Then once we can overcome that, the 58.7, the 1 week shows up here. So 1 week, 63,700 comes together right here. So that's the peak of this move here, that little swing top. And it's also the ranges from the top to the bottom. So right through that middle there, 63,700 would be one of the most important confirmation levels now for Bitcoin over the coming weeks as we lead into the 4 to 6 month period underneath the old all-time high. You've heard me say that heaps and heaps of times before. 4 to 6 months time frame underneath that high. So we're getting into that zone right now. This is looking pretty similar to the previous move in 2023. You've got about 6 months in this range before it absolutely pumped out of that zone. If something like that was to happen again, it could be pretty significant moves to the upside for Bitcoin. Okay, I think altcoins need a little bit longer to rest, but in terms of, because at that time, 2022, altcoins were basically down through this entire period. So there's a lot of consolidation going on there for the stronger stuff, and then you had this pump out. Whereas now they've had their pump out, that's for alts, and they might need a little bit longer. So this period of the 6 months from March, and then maybe 2, 3, 6 months from that period. I'll get to that in just a moment. But this is what's really, really interesting right now, where if you're looking at it from March of 23 to, let's just go to the peak here and move this over to the top. So you got that level, and then you can see the market drop off Next month would be like a small month here. So August potentially just climbing the price point back. And then maybe September, October, some sort of move to the upside leading to a breakout of the highs. Now, I am also wary of the election coming up. So I don't know how this is going to respond at that election time, whether it's going to need another month or so to get above it due to the election happening in November. And then we see the breakout like we saw in 2020. You got the October move breaking out of the tops, but then in November after the election, that's when it started to test the old all-time high. So either way, I think we're going to see some fireworks in Q4, but Q3 is this period now where it's recuperating and getting time to break to this new fresh price. That leads us on to altcoins and a look here at the short term and the long term for alts, along with the strong and the weak stuff. Now, just a quick recap of the Bitcoin dominance. The dominance here, should this break out of the 50% level, you can see it's just been getting hammered down by the 50% here. A breakout here would destroy most alts, but not all alts. So that's the good news there. A break under here, you're going to see a little bit more of that money flowing to altcoins. So you can see just how important these 50% levels are for anything with a chart. Whether it's a dominance chart, whether it's your stock markets charts, whether it's Bitcoin cryptos, the 50% level tells us a lot about the strength and weakness of a market. So keep a lookout here on your dominance chart. So dominance looking pretty well in play here, doing what it needs to do to take that energy back from the cryptos. Now we covered the threats for Bitcoin to the downside, and then obviously the safe zones to the upside. So this is the stable coins along with all of the altcoins. Now it had a fake out to the downside at the 50% level, at the previous tops. So essentially it hit the previous resistance, potentially becoming support here. So the move now is to consolidate above 540 billion, the level that we've been discussing here on the channel based on the 50% levels. The correction to the downside was 35%, so a pretty healthy move here for the altcoins, obviously including stables. The next levels above now, a nice round number of 600 billion, but I'm more interested in that level right there. So that's about 620 billion. The reason for that is there was several tops here and a few lows as well. So to flip that would be your support resistance flip. Getting a support resistance flip, so going from a resistance to a support, much stronger technical position for the market to be in. So until that happens, that is a slight threat to cryptocurrencies. So safe versus a threat here, 50% level 540, and then I'm throwing in $620 billion on the market cap. How do you use that? Like, how is this important to our crypto investing or trading? If you start to see some strength come back to this macro chart here, so for the entire index of cryptocurrencies, then you probably have a much better chance that whichever strong alts you found, strong altcoins that you were looking at, maybe invested in, are going to have a better chance of surviving into that next alt season, whether it's 3 months' time, 6 months' time, early next year, which is 6 to 9 months' time. It has a better chance. That's how I would use this if the market continues to consolidate above that 620. Gets rejected here, then probably going to see a bit more blood for altcoins. But if you're in weak altcoins, you're going to see even more blood. And the stronger alts that we've been following here on the channel are still putting in higher lows, or at least equal lows to the dumps that they had in April. So you can see this April dump here. That was a pretty fearful time, if you guys remember back to the 12th and 13th of April, where we had two significant moves to the downside. So that is the comparison that I'm using for a lot of alts, and also the 50% levels. And another threat is any alts that are falling back into their previous consolidation range. So you don't want to see your alts fall back into previous zones. As much as people want to see lower prices, there is a difference between a strong lower price and a weak lower price. If it falls back to the same price as it was before, then really it just seems like, well, there's a high chance that it was more like a pump and a dump. But if you're getting a higher low, that potentially means you've got more people holding on to their altcoins than what were holding on to it before, which means there might be something up for another pump to come. Not tomorrow, not next week, Not even next month. I don't think it's not going to happen next month. But sometime Q4, Q1, you'll probably see better signs flowing out around this around that period for potential pumps. So that's BTC. 3 day down. We're looking for the 3 days up now, hopefully, and then consolidations above the 58, the 60, and then the 63K level. We're a week out from this zone of potentially moving to new all-time highs, which I think is very exciting after this flush out of the market sentiment. Lots of fear came in. I had plenty of comments from people saying that, I'm hearing of 30K Bitcoin, and, this time it's over now. This time is different. And it's, there's a lot more fear in it. I hope it comes back, but I don't think it is. That was what the market was waiting for, in my opinion. I'll see you at the next video in a couple of days' time after I travel to the surf island that I'm going to. But until then, take care.